Hello and welcome to Merlin's Brick News, the weekly show on all things brick building, where we talk about set updates and announcements from all the major brands as well as MOCs of the week. We are in episode 38, I do believe. So let's get started right away. As always, in alphabetical order, we start with BlueBrixx, the brand from over here in Germany. And there we have an announcement of the next extension of Blaustein Kasse. This should be number 6. However, they also had 2 extra sets that were, at least until now, not directly attached to the castle. So overall, we should be at 7 sets nowadays. And if you own all of them, this is what you should see. We do not have a piece count yet for the newest extension. However, I do believe it will be in the ballpark, I guess, somewhere between maybe something around 4,000 pieces. That would be my guess. With all the sets combined, you should be in the area of 28,000 pieces, something like that. We, like I said, we do not know yet because they haven't given us a piece count for the newest set. The Mint Tower, and this is actually what you see here on the left, this gray tower. Basically, before that, we had this wooden tower in here, and that actually this wooden tower is now part of the outer area. So combined with these 2 sets that they released also this year, like the horse stable and the weaponsmith, I think was the other one. So if you combine all of that together, then you have almost like 2 castles, the wooden structure, if you will, defense structure, and then the castle itself. So obviously the castle is directly not getting any bigger. I guess it's getting a bit more heavy. However, I stopped at the previous extension, and at this point in time, with 22,000 pieces in the set, it was like almost impossible to move this thing. I mean, yes, if you put something like a wooden board below it, you had a chance, but I mean, this thing is huge, and also building it, like, you have to turn it during the build, etc. So this got more complicated and more complicated. So that's why I think one of the reasons why they have decided not to extend the main building itself that much anymore, only a little bit, and I think the good message is it's not getting any bigger. But now you have the second area, which has almost the same size, almost, right? So that means, yeah, this is not something that goes on the shelf anymore. I think you need a table or a desk, and then you can put this thing on. But obviously, and I mean, I've talked about this in the past, Blaustein Castle, I think, is a great thing, a great concept for all the people who would like to build large sceneries, large dioramas, medieval castle kind of style, but don't want to mock on their own. So I think this is still pretty great, and you can buy all of these, and at the end of the day, you will go in the ballpark of almost 30,000 pieces, and you can just buy it off the shelf, which I think is great. I mean, it's a cool concept, always liked it. I love the Blaustein, but like I said, the handling is getting more and more complicated. And nevertheless, we don't know the piece count, but we also don't know when it's going to release. My guess is maybe something like 5 to 6 months from now. So let's see how that goes. Moving on, we have availability of the diesel hydraulic freight locomotive, the 104846. So this is a pretty old number. So my guess is that this is a new release. It's always a bit complicated. This might have slipped and it was already released like 1 or 2 years ago. But I'm pretty sure that this is maybe an old design. You can see this by the number, like it has been the planning at BlueBrixx for quite a while. But I think it is the first release. That's at least my current guess. Anyhow, 630 pieces. BlueBrixx is asking over here in Europe, as always, especially for those of you living in the US, over here in Europe, that when we call out a price, it's always including tax. Please keep that in mind. So that's roughly, depending on the country in Europe, but for instance in Germany, it's 19% VAT included. 5.2 cents a piece with this price, 5.9 per gram. And with that, we're moving on to the erotic shop, which is quite astonishing to have a bricks build set for this. It's a pretty small one, actually, the 106727, 267 pieces. It's coming out of this new ModBricks portfolio that BlueBrixx recently, a couple of months ago, acquired. So ModBricks was also an independent company over here in Germany, and BlueBrixx acquired them, and now they're moving in the entire lineup into their own portfolio. Technically, BlueBrixx calls this the ModBrixx like its own brand. However, I have decided to make this a subcategory of BlueBrixx itself, simply for easier handling. $12, 267 pieces. I mean, it's a tiny building. There's not much in there, but nevertheless, I mean, if this is your cup of tea, you want to make your city, maybe your harbor district a bit more realistic, and you don't have kids at home, maybe, that you don't want to explain this set to, then maybe this is your thing. Anyhow, let's move on to the architecture series of BlueBrixx, and here the 105784 is now available, the Jin Mao Tower, which... on one hand, you might argue this is quite a boring building, but I think if you look if you get a bit closer, I think it's really astonishing how the designer Anton managed to get this certain look using all these trans pieces, and then I think jumper plates below the trans pieces to get this window look, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, it's an enormous building. It has 4,500 pieces. My apologies. So it is gigantic. I've built one or two of these skyscrapers from BlueBrixx, and yeah, it's not easy to handle them, right? This thing is 90 centimeters in height, and 19.5 by 19.5 is on the ground. Yeah, it's a one by 500 representation of this tower. So yeah, it's a huge set, and if you look at the color distribution table, basically you have sand blue, trans black, and light bluish gray. I mean, this is basically what the set is all about. Everything else can almost be ignored. So yeah, it's huge. There's a lot of stuff in there, and you're basically just building in 3 colors, which for sure is not easy. Please also keep in mind this is a BlueBrixx special, so means no. Basically, you have all the pieces on the table. However, I'm pretty sure a lot of these. I mean, let's go into in this list. So for instance, of these slopes, you have already 372 brick modified 1 by 2 by 1 2/3 with studs on the side. I mean, this is a typical piece that you use for this kind of thing. You have 260 of these in the set. So, and the 1 by 1 you have 208. So this is just crazy. It's almost ridiculous. What I find interesting. Yeah, and then you have these trans black pieces. I actually did expect that we would see more. It's actually not that much, which is interesting. Anyhow, very interesting design, if you ask me. But yeah, it's huge. Anyhow, BlueBrixx asking for $180. That's 4 cents a piece. With that, we're moving on to the car carrier wagon. Actually, I don't know how it looks in other countries, but this is quite typical here for Central Europe, that they are transporting cars like this. This thing has 1,331 pieces. Obviously, the car carrier is not the main thing here. You're building 6 cars, which are like 8-stud cars. So in the Lego world, like Speed Champions, I guess. However, you're building 6 of them, and they almost are basically identical from the building side, as far as I can tell, which sounds a bit boring to build. On the other hand, you know, if it's new cars, then right, this is exactly how it looks like, right? You're seeing one of these trains, and you see 100 new, I don't know, Audi, Mercedes, whatever, on this thing, and this is just the way it looks. But I think it could be a bit boring to build this thing. Anyhow, BlueBrixx is selling it for $60. That's 4.5 cents a piece. With that, we are going on. We have availability of Westminster Abbey, the 106806. I think this is really interesting. So this is obviously from the UK. The same designer has done very similar sets, similar size of 2 very famous German cathedrals or churches, Mainzer Dom and what was the other one? Ulmer Münster. So now we're going onto the island, and this thing, however, is far larger than the other 2. It has 2,347 pieces, and it again costs $80, 3.4 cents a piece. Quite an interesting set. I think from the size, I haven't counted the studs, but the other 2 are 34 by 16 studs in size, and I think this one is similar. And yeah, he managed somehow to squeeze 2003. I mean, there are Lego modulars who have less pieces than this one. And this thing is really small. I mean, look at this. These are 8 studs here. So this is an 8 by 2 plate. This thing is really, really small. So I think, yeah, that's great. By the way, all of these BlueBrixx sets, when I also call out prices, obviously that includes, if you look at the Euro price, we're talking about availability over here in Europe. I actually don't know if BlueBrixx is shipping outside of Europe, but I'm pretty sure they are shipping to the UK. So for For the Brits, I think this is a good news. And then with that, we're moving on to a tank. I think this is a French armored vehicle, the AMX-10 RCAFV. I think this thing has been in the news several times, because I think this is one of the shipments that the French did to the Ukraine, and the 106890 BlueBrixx is asking for $25 for this thing. That's 4.5 piece per 4.5 cents per piece, and not too shabby. It's a 1/30 scale. Please always keep that in mind. So BlueBrixx, with all their army vehicles, military vehicles, and they have actually quite a portfolio. They're using a different scale, unfortunately, than Kobe does. So I mean, yeah, 1/30 is something that Kobe does not have. So if you want to combine the two brands, you may be in trouble there. Just keep that in mind. But they're doing a lot of modern stuff, especially, let's say, European armies, mostly French, a little bit of British, and most of it is German, actually, and then a little bit of French and British, as far as I can tell. But yeah, that's great, because Kobe obviously is more focusing on tanks of the past, mostly Second World War, and they don't have that many modern tanks. But yeah, like I said, you can really combine them, because the scale is different, which is very unfortunate. I would have liked for BlueBrixx to go with the same scale as Kobe to allow folks to combine them. Anyhow, we also have an announcement of what they call a big tractor in dark green. I mean, this is, yeah, what a great name. Anyhow, the 107584, this thing is going to have 837 pieces. Actually, I've never seen a tractor in this color scheme. I mean, from the tractor point of view, it looks like the Mercedes-Benz truck of the past, which is not available anymore. I don't know, you might see forest workers using a tractor like this, but actually, yeah, I don't know. I've never seen this color scheme, but nevertheless, if this is your cup of tea, here you go. And then we have another announcements, again, architecture, again from the architecture designer of BlueBrixx, Anton. 3,988 pieces will have this Sagrada Familia, and I have no idea if I pronounce this correctly, the 107585. So this is a church that is actually in Barcelona, over here in Europe, in Spain, to be more precise. And I think they started building this church in the 1880s, I think, if I recall correctly, and they are building to this day. So I think there was the idea to have it finished by 2026, but what I've read is that is not really in the cards anymore. So yeah, this is a church they have been working on. I mean, and they are actually working. I mean, you can see, if you look at current pictures, there is construction going on. So they are literally, I mean, they had some, they were pausing construction during the Spanish Civil War, etc., etc. There were always times where they stopped building, but in general, it's a church that is making work in progress for 150 years. My understanding is that for the Catholic community, it is also one of the higher tier churches. I'm actually really not an expert, but I think this thing has been ranked by the Pope to be something important. Anyhow, it is enormous. However, personally, I must say, if I look the pictures of this thing, the church itself looks a bit, I don't know, I don't like this building style. It looks a bit ridiculous, if you ask me. But so as a result, I also, to be honest, don't really like the model, but I think it's a good representation. So if you like the church, I'm pretty sure you will like the model, and vice versa. So yeah, not really my cup of tea. Anyhow, here you go, 3,000, almost 4,000 pieces for this BMOS, but only an announcement at this point in time. And then something that BlueBrixx calls the American Freight Train, and technically it's just a locomotive, not a train, but I actually don't know what the type is. I'm really not a train guy. But here we go, the 107589. Again, this is coming out of this ModBrixx acquisition. I think it's a nice design. And for those of you who are from, I don't know, Australia or North America, where these things are driving around, then this might be more familiar to you. Actually, over here in Europe, they look very different. So that is something that is not really familiar to us. But I guess if you are from, like I said, America or Australia, I guess this is much more familiar to you. 993 pieces, like I said, at this point in time, only in announcements. With that, we are coming back to architecture, again, back to designer Anton. Maybe I should have sorted this a little bit. And this is the Steinway Tower. This might be known to many of you. This thing is in New York, Manhattan. It's directly, I think, bordering with Central Park, so very central thing. 107591 is the set by BlueBrixx, and I think this thing, yeah, is known like the apartment building for the billionaires, right? I think the penthouse is something like $330 million US is the ask price, I think. There was once a YouTube video I saw on this one. I think it has 3 floors. It's ridiculously big. And obviously, in this height, Manhattan looks like I don't know, like a small soccer field or something. Or the Central Park looks like a small soccer field, let's put it that way. I think this thing has 64 floors, but only 63 condos or flats or whatever you may call it. So yeah, this thing is for the rich of the rich, and here we go. However, we have now this set. It has only 1,293 pieces. My apologies, 1,293. I still, English numbers not that easy. Anyhow, because by the way, just as an explanation for why I'm sometimes struggling, and maybe some Germans struggling, we have a weird thing in Germany that we don't read numbers in the correct order. It's part of our language. It's completely crazy, but basically we are not saying 93, but basically saying. It's basically 3 and 90. This is basically what we say. So instead of 93, we say something that I would translate directly to 3 and 90. It's completely crazy. It makes no sense. Has never made any sense. It's one of the quirks of the German language. And I don't know why we do it. And I know that a lot of scientists have proposed in the past to change it. But I mean, how do you change a language in an artificial way? It never works. So yeah, I have to live with it. That's, by the way, the reason why I get this wrong, I do believe, because the English language makes a lot more sense than the German one, trust me. Anyhow, let's move on to Lego, and here we have the announcement of the Icons Natural History Museum, the new modular building, the 10326. Here it is, 4,014 pieces, so it is slightly bigger than, let's go. Actually, I have a small problem here. That was wrong. Oh, shit. Let me go back. What I wanted to say is, if we go to modular and look for Lego, so far, yeah, the assembly square was the biggest one so far, right? It has 4,002 pieces. So this thing is now formally the biggest modular building. I mean, this is not uncommon. Lego is doing in general, right? If you look over time, Lego sets getting a higher piece count. This is like a constant over 40 years, 50 years of Lego. The sets getting a higher piece count, right? When I was a kid, the biggest sets had like 800 pieces. So that's the way it is. It gets more, the pieces get smaller. The brick building techniques getting more complicated. So that's not a big surprise. However, it is like the assembly square by means that it has 1.5 base plates. So that's the big thing, right? The assembly square is getting end of life this year. So this thing is like the, if you will, successor of this one. And it has 7 minifigures and an ask price or list price of $300 US. And in the UK, it's £260. And in the European Union, it's €300. Again, always keep in mind that includes in Europe tax. So technically, I think it is slightly cheaper over here in Europe. But anyhow, here we go. Let's talk about the building. So I guess the most obvious and debatable one is the color decision, right? This is olive green. Personally, I think it's a great idea. I do believe going into something that is a bit more realistic, like I don't know, dark tan, for instance, or maybe a light bluish gray, would have been boring, so that's fine. Sand blue, sand green could have been an interesting choice as well. However, these are colors where Lego typically has color deviation problems, so maybe that is the reason why they went for olive green. Dark red would have been great, however, they just had the Jazz Club this year, which, by the way, is also one of the other interesting things that they are going 1 month earlier in the race, and this is the December 1st set. So that's interesting why they are doing this. Of course, a lot of people believe it has to do with going into the holidays, right, into Christmas. So this could be great. However, I personally do believe the main reason is that we have no big icon set this year, right? Last year, Paris Tower, the Eiffel Tower, we had the Titanic, before that we had the Colosseum, and this year I think there's none because they have this big marble set, right? So for all those people who like enormous Lego sets, they go for the Marvel set. But obviously Marvel is not for everyone. So that's, I think, why they decided to go a month earlier. So I'm personally not sold on the idea that this is a new thing and they will do this now every year, because I think there's a very good chance that going forward next year and the year thereafter, they are also releasing big icon sets, because I think the Titanic and the Eiffel Tower are loved by many, especially the Titanic. And I think Lego will continue to do these sets, but not this year, because this year they went for Marvel. Anyhow, as a result of that, we have 2 modulars this year, right? We had in January the Jazz Club, and now we have this one. And I guess next year we will have, in quotes, none, if they return to the old schedule next year. Let's see. That's the future. But let's go back to the building. Like I said, 7 minifigures. We have, of course, a big dinosaur in here, as it should be, right? I mean, that's the first thing if you move into the Natural Museum in New York. That's the first thing that you see. Obviously, Lego had, I mean, a lot of people, I guess, were hoping that they would do a dinosaur that would basically cover the entire floor. But as a result, this thing, I think it would have made a very boring building, right? Because if this thing would have covered the entire first floor, then also because of how tall the neck is, then also basically the second floor would have been covered by this thing and would have restricted the designer's options, for an interesting interior. Anyhow, you have you have geology. Is it geology? Geology, right? The Earth core here as an idea, as a theme. You have space flight. Then I don't know what really natural history has to do with this. It seems like there's also a museum part, like going to the seas, medieval stuff. Not really sure why they did it, but I'm looking forward to see all the details of that. You have, I guess, astronomy also as a topic, so quite interesting here. And then if you go on the roof, this I think is the director here, which by the way is an amazing minifigure. I'm really looking forward to take a look at this white print on the dark bluish gray torso, because in reality usually the Lego is struggling a bit getting a good bright white on these dark torsos with their minifigures, but we also know that the Lego marketing team loves to cover this up with Photoshop, like they did, for instance, in the Republic Coruscant Guard gunship very recently on the red minifigures, and printing white on red is not really working out very well for Lego. So the pictures on the box look very different from the real minifigures. So this could be the case here, but it may also be that they finally managed to do decent prints on dark torsos. Let's see. Cool minifigure, by the way. This guy has an amazing beard. And he has his office on the roof. Tiny office, but looks nice anyhow. A couple of very cute prints in there. Nice minifigures. Amazing dog. Is this actually a new mold? Not really sure. I'm not so much into Lego pets, but this dog looks amazing. I want to have one of those. Anyhow, I definitely want to build it. And yeah, and if you look here at color deviations, I think fixing these with Photoshop in this kind of angle with all the glare here on the side I think it's very complicated. So that's why I do believe that this actually is for real. And it seems like that olive green does not have any of these problems. So, which again could be one of the reasons for making this choice. Really looking forward to this one. I mean, in the past there were modular buildings where I was thinking when I saw the first pictures, this color choice is weird. I actually thought this about the Jazz Club, and then in reality, when the set was in front of me, it looked just beautiful. So I have a feeling this is going to be here the case as well. And then we have the Icons Dune Atreides Royal Ornithopter. Actually, I have no idea how Atreides? How is this pronounced in English? In German, it's Atreides, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, the 10327, we have the Ornithopter finally, was in the rumors for like forever. 1,369 pieces, 8 minifigures. And this, I think, is the interesting part here with the 8 minifigures, because all the main characters are in here, which kind of means, at least in my point of view, that this is going to be a single set. There is not going to be like with Indiana Jones, where we had 3 sets. I mean, they have announced only this one. Obviously, there could also be accompanying 1 or 2 smaller sets, but I don't think so, because all the main characters from the one movie are in there. Obviously, I think there's going to be another movie, so maybe a couple of additional characters and scenes could make this interesting to make more sets, but for the time being, I think this is like an all-including set. All the main characters that are there, all the characters that you need. And here we go. So the piece itself, I think this is an interesting set. It's a bit like the rover. Very recently, the NASA set, because it is a display piece, a nice display piece for all the fans of the movies, right? You have the minifigures and everything, but it's also an interesting technique set, right? And I think that makes this interesting. This is almost not an icons, but more like a technique set, because there's so much functionality around the wings, because you can, bring them in a parking position. You can have even a flying option. You can bring them into movement. That, of course, also means that if you put this on the shelf, while it does look impressive, I'm pretty sure, because this thing is also enormous, obviously the problematic part, at least from my point of view, is that you have all these technique stuff that does not look that good, especially with all the red Technic pieces, right? This is always an issue with Lego, that they do not have certain Technic pieces in other colors than blue or red or yellow for that matter, and not enough black pieces, because this thing could really use a couple of more black pieces. However, obviously there are other companies like BlueBrixx, Arcada, where you can get these pieces in black usually as well, which I think is something that I would do. I would replace certain Technic pieces from the Lego set with other brands. At least what I would do, because it would look a lot nicer, because the red is really bothering me here. Anyhow, you have this cool mechanism. You can put the landing gear into a flying position as well. Like I said, you can move the wings, and you can bring them back into a parking position, which looks really cool. At the same time, it is a cool set to put your minifigures in. 2, I think, can go into the cockpit, maybe 3. Looks really cool. It's a nice hybrid, right? Out of a minifigure, diorama piece, presentation piece, and some nice Technic functionalities. Minifigures are really cool. Obviously, one big topic is also from Mr. Harkonnen, his skirt. I don't know, is it still a skirt? I don't know what it is, but it looks really cool. It's a new piece, of course, a new cloth piece. Yeah, like it continues to be. Every series gets amazing cloth pieces, with the exception of Star Wars, for whatever reason, where we do not even Rex in a UCS set is not getting a comma, but here we go. Anyhow, let's move on to the tiny plants. I think this is the first set from the Botanical collection that I really like. The 10329, 758 pieces. It's going to be let's go back to the Ornithopter. I forgot the pricing. I should have mentioned that. So the Ornithopter, let's go back to this one, is in the UK 150 quid, in the US $165, and in the European Union it's 165 euros. And what is interesting, at least in the US, it goes also to Amazon. I can say over here in Europe, a lot of the European retailers are getting this set as well, with the typical discounts that we usually have in this scenario over here in Europe. So I saw a couple of first German retailers listing this thing for 128 euros. And again, that's including tax. So yeah, I'm sorry for North American folks. Usually Lego is a lot cheaper over here in Europe. Anyhow, let's move on, or let's go back to the tiny plants. So this is, I think, the smallest set from the Botanical collection. Not 1% sure, but for sure it's the first one that I personally like. 758 pieces. It is in the UK 45 quid, the US and $50. The same is true in the European Union, in euros, of course. And this thing is great. I mean, first of all, they look great, as all the sets from the Botanical collection. Is simply astonishing what designers can do with all the various pieces. And because you really, I'm really not a plant guy. My wife has a lot of plants, and I don't even know the name of 90% of them. No, let's be honest, 95% of them. And then the same is true for here, but I'm pretty sure I've seen all of these plants. So this is great. It's amazing. And also in the MOC scene, it's just astonishing what folks can do with Lego pieces to create, create nature, literally, out of plastic pieces, originally designed to make buildings and vehicles and stuff. So it's really cool. All these different pots also mean, of course, you have a lot of flexibility, right? You can put this all over your place, and which I think is great. It's a great option. And yeah, I just like it. I don't know. It looks really cool. And I think the price is not too shabby. $50. That means 6.6 cents a piece. This thing has been handed out to recognized fan media outlets by Lego. So if you want to take a peek, in New Elementary and Jay's Brick Block had this thing already for review. Let's move on to the Mork forest cabin, and here the pictures are a bit messed up. So Mork has done a lot of these sets. They always look very similar. I've talked about these in the past. So, I mean, let's take a look at Mork. Let's go for 310. Which ones I was talking about? Yeah, these, right? If you look at the 31072, the 31071, and I think there was even a third one, which I can't find right now. They all look very similar. And they're all in the same ballpark from a piece count point of view. They always have the same trees next to them. So I'm not really sure why you would buy 3 of these. But yeah, I mean, they all have different shapes, different roofs. So depending on what kind of roof is your cup of tea, they all have lighting included. So yeah, here you go. A third version of this kind of set. And this is now available in China, where it starts from $26 plus shipping. And then let's move on to Mould King. And here we have the 8-stud car series has the next wave. So Mould King, I think, is by far now the biggest manufacturer for these 8-stud cars, which Lego called Speed Champions. But I think Mould King is making a lot more than Lego does. I mean, how many Speed Champions is Lego doing per year? Maybe like 3 or 4. And I think Mould King is, I don't know, it's the third wave this year. So it's more, I guess, a dozen, something like that. So they are huge in this. And actually, I've built several of them, and they are quite good. Actually, I've never built a Speed Champion. I have one, I can see it from here on the shelf that I do want to build, the Lotus. So really looking forward to this one, making some comparisons. But yeah, for whatever reason, I've never built the Lego one, but I've built a lot of these for Mould King. I think if you look just at the numbers, what you can immediately see is that they have a lot more pieces than Lego has. So Lego Speed Champion usually is in the ballpark of 260, 280 pieces. And these Mould King ones, they go up, I think, up to 380. So, but from a size point of view, I think they're very comparable. Anyhow, this thing you can now buy. This is the Charger RT. As always, Mould King is not having any licenses. However, considering that even Lego, who do license everything, I mean, it's just the license is on the sticker sheet, if you will, right? So the vehicle itself does not have any prints, even with Lego. So from my point of view, not really needed. A license is not needed, but that's why these Mould King sets have sometimes a bit weird names. We will come to one or two interesting examples in a second. Anyhow, the Charger RT is the 27049, 346 pieces. You can buy this in Asia for around $950 plus shipping, and shipping is actually quite expensive. So there's a lot of stuff on top. And then we have the Martin 007 27050. So obviously that's an Aston Martin, and one that James Bond is driving around. I guess that's what Mould King is trying to say here. This thing has 348 pieces. Looks nice actually. I think Lego did a Bentley, right? I'm not 100% sure. But Lego, no, it was not a Bentley. Let's just check. What is the Lego set? So let's go. Here, it was also the DB5. Okay, so more or less the same thing has been done by Lego. So I think a comparison of these two could be really interesting, right? But yeah, here we go. Obviously, as always, Lego has, as part of these sets, a minifigure, while Mould King has basically, what is it called in English? I don't know. It's like a box, like a glass box is included to present this thing and protect it from dust, which is cool, actually. They have a very good quality. I really like these things that Mould King is putting in there. Anyhow, let's move on to the Challenger SRT, the 27051. It has 368 pieces, and again, same price, around $10 in China. And then we have the Koenigsegg. So not Koenigsegg, again, Mould King is playing around with the trademarks. 27052, 386 pieces. Yeah, I mean, I've said this in the past. I mean, from my point of view, these cars are driving around on the street. So, I don't know. From my point of view, I don't need a license here because, this is a car on the street. Everybody can use that design. And actually, I think model building companies have been in courts with car manufacturers and usually win this because, again, these things drive around. Obviously, you have a trademark on the name, and so that's why I personally do believe that what Mould King is doing here is a bit childish. I'm sorry for the word, but I mean, it's just crazy, right? Just call this a great supercar, and everybody's happy. Fans know what they are getting, but getting these, playing around here with the name like this is a bit, like I said, a bit childish, but here we go. And then when we're moving on to availability, actually only here in Europe, I have found a shop having these now in store, Panlos buildings. Like these are like small stores or small shops. I guess they are on minifigure scale, but obviously no minifigures included. But I think you can combine these with Lego minifigures. Obviously they are tiny, like I said. They are great toy sets, play sets, I guess. But they have only around 350 pieces. Anyhow, let's go through them. So we have first the Whoosh toy store, the 883001. It has 343 pieces and is sold over here in Europe, again, including tax, $15, 4.5 cents a piece, cents per piece. This is Panlos. They make great quality pieces. I'm a big fan of them. From my point of view, next to BlueBrixx and maybe Kada, they are making the best pieces in the Asian and the Chinese market from the Chinese manufacturers, let's put it that way. So I'm a big fan of these. And usually, I mean, this is a kit set, so I'm not sure here, but usually Panlos sets, all the ones I've seen, that's all pet printed. But again, this is not confirmed for these sets because I haven't built them. But I mean, I actually could check out the manual. So if you want to, SetDB as always has the manual linked. So maybe check this out if you want to be sure. But obviously for this price, $15, if all of these pieces would be pet printed, this is a steal, right? Anyhow, let's move on to the next one, the Quark Toy Store. 883002, and again, same price, 358 pieces. Personally, I think from the color scheme, I would prefer this one, but obviously for that price, you can buy all of them and have a lot of fun with it. The Lion Boy Grocery Store, I mean, this one looks a bit ridiculous with the lion, but kids may love it. 883003, 341 pieces, and again, $15 over here in Europe. And then the Reindeer Shop. Ski shop. It's a complicated language. 883004. 339 pieces, $15, 4.4 cents a piece. And then again, availability of another Panlos set, a Technic supercar. They call it the Street Rev Evolution, or that's at least somebody, I guess, trying to translate this into English. 673005. BlueBrixx has this over here in Europe for $65, roughly 4.5 cents a piece. And this is an interesting design. Not really my cup of tea, but what is of course interesting is that you have here all these Technic pieces in olive green. There are also a couple of prints/stickers included. I've never built a Panlos Technic set, so what I said before, that everything is pet printed, may not be true here. I actually don't know. If so, however, it would be really astonishing to have these large Technic panels in a printed fashion. But again, I don't know. What I can say is, as you can see here, is 37 centimeters in length, 16 wide, and 8 in height. With that, we're moving on to Pantasy, and here we have the Retro 90s PC, actually a set that I'm building right now. I have a lot of these pieces in front of me, in front of my keyboard actually right now, and I do intend to continue to build it tomorrow. So far, really looking really cool. Everything that you see is pet printed. BlueBrixx pieces, great quality, amazing design. Actually, this is the second time they do this. I think I've talked about this in the past, that Pantasy is redoing a lot of their sets in a kind of second version where they're scaling them down a little bit. Like a lot of their sets in the past have been a bit exotic. So for instance, the predecessor to this set had a lot of interior of gaming scenes from a Chinese roleplay game, Paladin, and obviously in the Western market, almost nobody knows this game. Plus, there were minifigures included, problematic minifigures that, for instance, in Europe, you will definitely have an IP problem with Lego here because they looked almost like Lego minifigures. So that's it. So they kind of changed the set. Also, the keyboard was with Chinese letters and not Latin ones. So as for me, these sets, and they have done this with the retro TV, they have done this with the iGame gaming PC. It seems they are doing this now with the one modular that they did, the bakery. So for me, it looks like they're basically creating a second version of their lineup that is more suited to the Western market. That's my take on it. But anyhow, I'm building this so far. I'm a ton of fun, and I think this is. And also, if you look at this Minesweeper game, this is again a card, right? That you basically slide into the monitor, and you have several of them. But this one here with the Minesweeper game is like a hybrid. So there's card, but there's also bricks in here. So it's an interesting hybrid. And yeah, as you can see, this thing has an interesting interior. So far, again, I'm just, I don't know if I've opened 3 bags or something like that. So I'm in the beginnings, but I had so much fun so far. Great set. Actually, I also built the predecessor, the one with the Paladin, and it was an amazing set as well. Big fan of the brand Pantasy, I can say. Anyhow, let's move on to Reobrix. And here they move on with all the military aircraft. Huge, enormous, humongous military aircraft. Dassault Rafale 33035, 2,100 pieces roughly. You can buy it in Asia for around $43 plus shipping. And yeah, I mean, this is now the French are now moving in. Like we had the F-14, the F-15, the F-22, as you can see here. We had several helicopters, and now we're moving into French territory. But what we also have is the Coast Guard Sikorsky Jayhawk, and yeah, this thing looks pretty cool as well, and has 1,137 pieces, so it's a lot smaller than the other ones, like half the size, and you can buy it in Asia for around $31. Reobrix also, we have also availability of several 8-star cars from Reobrix, so that's maybe an alternative to the Mould King ones I just showed you. And here we have one that is called Agera Blue, the 805. I have seen this set only in Europe so far, again with BlueBrixx, a European manufacturer and retailer for that matter. Also, like as you can see, more pieces than usually Lego does. 327 pieces. Over in Europe for $14, that's 4.3 cents a piece. And then we have the DB12. So again, yes, this is an Aston Martin, but obviously without, I think, what is it called? Aston Martin Vulcan? Not really sure, I can't recall. Jeremy Clarkson, I think, was driving this thing in a Grand Tour, right? But I forgot the name. Anyhow, this is the Sandgri version. It's a 798 from Reobrix, 316 pieces. Again, $14 over here in Europe. And then we have a Hellcat. You know, why not? Another Hellcat, so you get Hellcat. So you can directly, of course, compare it to this Mould King one. Actually, the Mould King one looks a bit weird, but that is a picture problem, I think. It is not that high. It looks a bit too small and too high for its own good. But actually, I think it has exactly the same size as this one. As you can see, right on top of the wheel is one tile. But yeah, like I said, something went wrong with the picture on the Mould King version. Anyhow, here's the Reobrix alternative. The Hellcat, the 796, 336 pieces, $14. With that, we are done with set announcements and updates. Let's move on to MOCs of the week. And here what I found is the Mill Village Raid Remake, Lego Medieval Castle MOC, Merlin brick design. Actually, the number here is wrong. In the title, it's not the 3739. This is a remake of the 7189 out of the Kingdoms era, I should rather say. Back in the day, the set had, and again, this is typical, right? The set back in the day, and it looked very rich and detailed, had only 663 pieces. So Merlin Brick Design has now done a MOC, basically an homage to this original set, and he uses 3 times the pieces. I mean, obviously, Lego, even nowadays, go always for a lower piece count, right? MOCs in the same size almost always have more pieces, because obviously Lego designers have a monetary interest, a vested interest in keeping the piece count as low as possible, independent of what I said, that Lego sets in general have more pieces. But I'm pretty sure if Lego would do this set today, they would try to do it with maybe 1,000 pieces, right? Instead of 660 like they did in the old days. But as you can see, a MOC designer is using 1,700. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. Anyhow, Merlin Brick Design has done a cool design here, I do believe. And I think this is also a great farm not only if you go like into this castle theme, but also in a city lineup. This would, this would be great. So why not? I mean, the building itself could be a barn somewhere even used today, right? So from my point of view, pretty cool idea. Great design, really fits very well with the castle theme, with the Lion Knight's castle, etc., etc. Let's move on to a mock from DW Meltix. No idea how this is supposed to be pronounced, but anyway, it's a Tuscany vineyard. $10 for a construction that includes 6,000 pieces. I really like this design. I mean, obviously the entire natural part is very simplistic. The entire building is very realistic, you may say, right? What I really like about this, though, is that this is a masterpiece in using masonry bricks, because he used a huge amount of masonry bricks, and a lot of folks do this, but the problem is if you use too many masonry bricks, it just looks awful, like really, really boring. And also unrealistic. That's the problem. The masonry bricks, you do believe, right? If I pop, thousands of these bad boys in there in the wall, then you have a great masonry wall. But actually, you do not. It looks awful. So what you can see here is he first of all uses both sides of the masonry brick, the 1x4s, but also the 1x2s, right? You can see this, that both sides, so the more simple side or the more complex side, are used in a combination to make a more realistic picture. In addition, he's using only a small amount of 1x1 round plates, and as a result you have a very realistically looking wall. So for those of you who are not going into the, let's say, design direction of being over the top, fantastical, like typical Lego style, but instead say, okay, let's go for realism, there are some great ideas in here that look very simple on the surface, and they are, but nevertheless, I know from my own experience, it's very hard to do these kind of walls, and I think he did a great job here. But of course, the roof is great as well. This is not a very new building technique, but if you go for like the typical Roman, Italian, Tuscan kind of roof structure, this is also a good building technique. Moving on to a medieval tavern by Reobrix. And here, this is actually a designer, but I'm always have this slight suspicion that, is this for real how many pieces you have in there? Have you kind of faked this somehow, that on the pictures you used more pieces than you have in the list? Because he has so cool designs, and it's always the same thing with this designer that I'm thinking all the time, like, how can you do this with that piece count? I remember when this cyberpunk seafood restaurant was first released. I talked about this in the news, maybe last year. Can't really recall. Anyhow, and I looked at this and said, no way you can do this with 660 pieces. So anyhow, now I have the same feeling with this medieval tavern. It's only 900 pieces, but it looks very detailed. But I think at the end of the day, what he has done here is putting in all the details, all the cool building techniques, detailed small building techniques. I mean, look at this huge amount of 1x1 plates and trends, but it's just a very tiny building. And I think this is the way to go, right? If you want to save money and also maybe don't have the space, these kind of buildings allow you to do a minifigure diorama, like an entire medieval village on a regular, IKEA shelf. And this is what I really like about these kind of designs. Actually, as you can see, he's working on a bigger village. And this is just, it seems, the first step in that direction. And then from BlueBrixx over here from, I think he's from Europe. I mean, he's German speaking, not 1% sure if he's from Germany or Austria. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. He has done something really great, the Viking Village expansion. So I think there are a lot of folks who believe, okay, the Viking Village is great, but it's a bit tiny and there are not enough minifigures included. But at least over here in Europe, in general, it's priced by Lego very well. And here in Europe, you get even enormous discounts already. So it's a very cheap set for what you get. So this could make it interesting to solve the problem with the benefit of the set by means it's cheap, and just buy two of them and make it bigger. And BlueBrixx is only using 586 pieces from the second set in quote. Obviously, you can only just buy the 586 pieces, but I think it's also great, like as a starting point, by means, okay, let's take his design, let's pay the $4 and do this as a first step, right? Buy the second set, take the 580 pieces out, get going, using his ideas, and then, keep going and make this bigger and bigger and basically combine two sets. I really like this idea, right? I think I'm always a big fan of MOCs that just get you going with your own projects, especially if you know, mocking or building MOCs has not been your cup of tea yet. I think this thing could be great. Basically, you building these 2 modules, extending the village, and like I said, just keep going. However, another alternative could be, of course, as always, pure alternate builds. And I think what Tanase, I don't know how the designer is pronounced, but what he has done is using the Creator Taj Mahal and the Assembly Square. That actually goes EOL this year, so maybe that's a last chance if you don't have it lying around. And build this amazing MOC here, the Mosque Corner, which I think does not look like the original sets at all, which is great for an alternate build. And it's just a huge 7,000 pieces MOC. And I think, you know, a lot of folks have these sets lying around, and the Taj Mahal itself, you know, and you can, by the way, as Taj Mahal, that is not creator, this is architecture, right? No, this is the old Taj Mahal. This is not the architecture one. This is the creator one, right? The 10256. Let me just double check. I was just thinking, yeah, this is the old one. Anyhow, I mean, if you have these sets lying around, I think this is a great, because it's entirely new build. It has, I think, an interesting size, because again, this thing fits on a shelf very well. And a MOC with 7,000 pieces is something that a lot of folks, I guess, you know, are shying away from, because, you know, 7,000 pieces on Brickling, I mean, this is crazy. It's a ton of effort, a huge amount of money. But, you know, here you just have 2 sets that are, you know, especially the Taj Mahal is not that expensive, because it was not a very good build back in the day. So I think, yeah, an Assembly Square is in a lot of Lego homes. So I think this could be a great option for you as well. And with that, we're moving on to a refresh on the LineBricks Modular by Brixx Fanu. Obviously very well known from his Instagram account, where he's giving a ton of stuff away for free. This one he has $15, but I think that's money well spent on a huge castle that has 4,000 pieces. It's entirely modular. So I think it's a bit like the Beerstone Castle from BlueBrixx from the concept, by means, okay, you can, because all of this is completely modular, you can build your own castle in the size that you want. And here you get, of course, the instruction for all these single modules. So obviously you can, you know, of these modules, you can decide, okay, I'm not building 2 of them, I'm building 10 of them, and make this bigger and bigger. So real cool concept. Big fan of these. I would wish that Lego would do more stuff like this. I mean, I talked about Blaustein Castle in the beginning. You know, right? If Lego would do more sets where you can combine them and make something that is getting bigger and bigger, this would be so cool. But anyhow, here you go. Brixx Fanu has you covered. And with that, we are moving on to an interesting collaboration that I'm not sure if I've seen before like this. So, Rodenstein Castle over here from Central Europe. So this is like an actual castle. This is, of course, I mean, it's a Lego castle style design of this historical building. So obviously it's not very realistic, but the ground is a bit, I mean, it has this as a reference, right? It's an interpretation of the Rodenstein Castle. Anyhow, what Seville has done here together with Evil Medieval, that each of them took a Lion Knight's castle and built 1/2 of Rodenstein Castle. So that means basically, and both of them, the asking price is for €12.80. And, you know, basically what you could do is just build 1/2 out of your Löwenstein Castle or Lion Knight's Castle, I'm sorry. And if you like this, then you acquire the second half and build the second half that I actually have right here. The piece from Evil Medieval. I think both of them have done a great job. I think even such a half, if you put it, you know, on a shelf to a wall, then I think even if you build only 50%, you have a great castle. As you can see from the piece count, they're basically using the entire Lego set, which is not easy to do. And, you know, if you want to do the next step, if maybe Lion Knight's Castle is on a discount, something like that, you know, then you go ahead and then you will have a castle with 8,000 pieces for a relatively okay-ish price, right? Lion Knight's Castle was priced quite okay by Lego. For sure, it's cheaper than going out and building a Mork with 8,000 pieces, just acquiring everything from Bricklink. So great idea, great collaboration between these two talented designers. With that, we are moving on to The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Castle by Pontus German MOCs. So this thing has 47 1,821 pieces. He's asking for only $60. Sounds expensive, but keep in mind, I think this thing has 7,000 pages. It's enormous. It's very niche. Not sure how many people are going to buy this. I have no idea how many bucks you have to pay if you want to, buy these pieces from Bricklink. It's going to be huge. But anyhow, if you're a big Zelda fan, I think he mentioned somewhere here that he actually built the half of the island, and he guesses it's 300,000 bricks. So yeah, if you have the money, if you have the space, here you go. The pictures here they are all rendered from studio, but he at least mentioned in the text that he has built this, because with MOCs like these in this size, I would be careful if the designer hasn't built it and for real, because how stable is the construction is the big question. But it looks from the text that he has actually built it for real. It's very unfortunate that he doesn't include a picture here. But yeah, keep also in mind that, not inventory, that was wrong, that this designer has done huge MOCs in the past, like the Elden Ring sets with 7,000, 16,000, the Cologne Cathedral with 29,000 pieces. So this designer has a lot of experience building these enormous things. But again, we do not have a picture for this where this thing has been built for real, but I do believe the designer. And yeah, it's great idea. Love the MOC. I will never build it for sure. Anyhow, I hope you liked the show. For those of you who watch this on YouTube, please leave a like or a comment, or even better, subscribe to the channel. Going forward, I do intend to do a lot more of these Brick News episodes. For you podcast listeners, please leave a review, comment, or like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the show. Thanks for listening. See you next week.